and especially warm welcome to our visitors today. Today we will be continuing our series on parenting, and later on in our presentation there will be a time of open forum where you get the opportunity to ask any questions you might have on parenting. I can think of a dozen just like that. However, firstly we will be using the creative arts of dance, drama, song and the spoken word. So please, sit back and relax and make yourselves comfortable. We begin with a drama entitled, I've Lost My Shirt.
Yes, John. I can't find my shirt. Which shirt? Jesus. We as a fellowship here at Hosanna are committed to giving back to God. We're going to take up a tithe and offering right now. So if those that have got the bags can start there. If you are a guest or visitor here, please just help us out by passing the bags along the rows and down the aisles as they come. That would be great. There is no expectation for you to place anything in these bags. While that's happening, I'll pray. Thank you, Father, for everybody here and what's been given back to you. May it be used wisely and for your glory and your purposes. Amen. After this morning's special event, we've got another invitation for you, and that's for tea or coffee or refreshments, cold drink, out in the foyer directly behind us. So please feel free to join us, and you might have more questions. I don't know, there's probably plenty of questions when it comes to parenting, but please enjoy the freedom to come and have a coffee with us afterwards. And also another invitation to you for next week, and if you've got one of these, which were at the front door, that's great. If you haven't got one, pick one up. It's telling us all about what's this current series content. And we're doing part 2 today. Part 3 next week is going to be a very special event. It's going to be right here at Hosanna. It's going to be in the evening. So it's 6:30 in the evening, and it's about the youth of today, surviving the youth of today. Now that should be an interesting topic. So we warmly invite all the youth to come along and find out how to survive your parents. And we warmly invite all the parents along to come and find out how to survive the youth. Is that fair enough? I think so. Okay, so next we have a bit of a stretchy stand-up sort of time. It's a time for you to join in our participation songs, if you please. So we've got the music team here ready to start us off with a couple of songs. If everybody would like to stand and join in with the music.
You know, we're going to invite a group of people up here shortly. Come and join me.
It's strange, but parenting is a freaky thing. To sit here and watch my daughter being given away as a bride. It's going to happen one day. There was one guy in the Bible who managed to keep all his daughters prophetesses, and I always assumed that they were therefore single. Thought that was a good move. But, you know, that's the way it is. Here she comes. Look, still dressed up. I wonder if you thought much, you know, some of us have children and some of us don't, and I want to reflect for a moment on those that haven't been able to have children because, you know, that's a hard deal sometimes. Some people it's a choice where they feel good about it, but sometimes it's a hard deal. I haven't switched on yet. Okay, here we go. These guys are really good, aren't they? Got to get it right. And but every one of us, and I want to give opportunity for people to ask questions this morning. Every one of us has the responsibility of sharing and raising the children, whether they're our own or not. Every one of us shares that responsibility. And so this morning we want to open up for questions, but I just wanted to start with some little sort of illustrations. Just before I came in here, I was doing a panic. I suddenly realised I'd forgotten to prepare any humour for this morning. And one of our ladies, Catherine, comes in and throws 2 books in my hands, and I looked at this and I thought, my goodness, I opened up and I thought, thank you God, problem solved. Listen to these ones. Why wash my hair? Won't the dirt fall off when you cut it? I am not stupid. It's just that I have slow ears. Heard that one before? When I ate 6 jellies, Dad told me off, but I think he was really just jealous. If there are rainbows, why aren't there snowbows? Little girl. My sister has Dad's nose, Mum's eyes, and my room. Mum used to be an actress, but now she's a lady. And the last one. I was smacked today for counting my ribs during the biology exam. Now, children will come out with the most unusual things at times. But I now want to, as our team come forward to join me, I want to read just a little story. In 1895, James is just 13. He spends lots of time with his father, helping to build the house, helping to shape things in life. They work hard, they spend long hours. And everybody in the village can remember James's dad, the smithy. He was always there. He's available, but so was his son. Deeply entrenched in times of working on ironwork and shoeing horses. He spends his time talking with his son, working through life's issues. The lessons learnt have not always been gained easily by the young boy, but James grows up. And some in the village remember when Harold died. He was just 40 years old and his son, only a week past 14, had taken over the workshop. He was reasonably well equipped too at 14, but it was hard. But he had 7 mouths to feed, his mother, his brothers and his sister. It's now year 1995, and James is 13. The modern James, named after his great-grandfather, has spent time at his father's side today. His father had left the house before he rose, and James has been at school all day. On the way home, he called at his piano class. As soon as he gets in, he turns on the television and sits glued as it both entertains and educates him. By the time he goes to bed, he's experienced all sorts of things. He's got a multitude of teachers, and some will have told him facts about the world that he lives in, and the others will have conveyed feelings. Intertwined in the geography will be the question of why people in Ethiopia are hungry. Alongside the science will be the big question of where it all came from, and the religious studies, the issue of what is really important in life, and often the religion is godless. Others will have either tuned or dulled his ear to great music, moulded a mind to politics, taught a sexual ethic, both good and bad, and helped create a man. At 9 that evening, Dad comes home. For the first time, he says to his son, "What did you learn today, son?" And at 13, the boy gives the universal answer of every teenager. "Oh, nothing." But the truth is different. The real truth is he's learned everything from everybody else except Dad. And it's not all good. Well, with that, let's welcome on these three. My wife's going to come and sit with me. And we're going to slide that chair a little closer so these two can sit next to each other. Now, for those of you who don't know these people, I'm going to start at the far end. Pat looked at the sofa and she came whispering to me just before service, "You're not going to make me stand up and get off that chair, eh?" She wants me comfortable. Pauline needs something a bit more comfortable. There we go. That's her having a short life. Let's give her a hand. I've asked these people to be here for a reason. Two people have very kindly gone out and taken Pauline's younger children's church. And the reason I've asked them to be here is because each of them represents something quite different. Pat on the end here, when she got married quite some years ago now, a long time ago, only 40 years ago, nearly 40 years ago. When she got married, she didn't know God. She was a woman who was in rebellion, run away from England, and married somebody she probably knew her parents wouldn't approve of easily, and then had children in the process of the whole deal, one boy and two girls. And her husband was a lovely chap. Sam was a nice guy. But she lives with the tension of her, during the process of time, having become a Christian. And Sam's not at that place right now. We show respect to him, but she has to cope with some unique things that none of the rest of us in this group have to cope with. So that's why I invited Pat here. So let's welcome her. I just summarised your life rather briefly, didn't I? Well done. And, on the other hand, has three boys. She's a solo mum, not because she had children out of wedlock, but because, unfortunately, the marriage broke down. Husband made some choices that left her kind of stranded. And Anne has had to raise these 3 boys on her own. The one thing with Anne is that she's been a Christian through the journey, through most of the journey. Not all the journey, but most of the journey, and she's had some support of the community here, and for a long period of time. The boys are wonderful young men, all 3 of them. I felt she had a right to be here because she, of all people, out of our congregation, has done well in raising the children. She's done extremely well considering what she's had to cope with. And I take my hat off to Anne. So give her a hand. So on the other hand, both Pauline and I, we both became Christians when we were around 17 years old, so around that time. That's a fair while ago now. I know we look a lot younger than most people. You know. But we've been married 27 years. We have 3 daughters, 2 of our own, and 1 we've taken into our family. Adele, who was dancing on the stage. Johanna, who was the bride on the stage. And was Sailor on stage this morning? No, she wasn't on stage this morning. Sailor's sitting down there. She's Cambodian by birth. She's part of our family. So we also have some unique experience. The fact that we don't only have our own children, although we did sort of adopt Sailor later, we sort of had a lot of involvement in her life from the time she was very little. And so we're there. We both have been Christians through the journey. We've gone through hell at times. At the beginning of our marriage, almost to survive. And I didn't come from a Christian home. I come from a very, very anti-Christian home. It's shifted now and it's sinking, but in those days it was pretty rough. So when I came into marriage and raising children, I made some pretty serious mistakes at times, but we learned through the journey. So we're here, and we want to give you the opportunity to ask questions if you'd like. If you see me nibbling on this, because somebody's asked a question, I've tried to come up with all sorts of imaginations in my mind. I've got a whole little box here that I can select one of which show it up on the screen. So if you see me doing that, I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to help us with the process this morning. We're really pretty open to your questions. If you want to target one of us with your question, you can do so. So would anybody like to ask a question and start talking? So let's give that again. Please. We won't do this to everybody. Marilyn's got a song.
You've had one of your children, well, not backslide, but go away from the church. How did you cope with that?
Sorry, we meant to have this up here. I'm just not paying attention to it. There we go.
I could see it coming, and I tried to talk to him about it, but at that stage he wasn't free to do that. Lots and lots of prayer on my own and with other people who I value as friends and helpers. And yeah, asking God for lots of wisdom as to how to approach it so that I didn't push him even further away. And I'm happy to say he's in a much better place these days and he's on his way back. So
Question for Pat. What's the main ingredient? 40 years of marriage. What's kept it together for that long?
Probably God. Well, it would be God. But just working things out and not always wanting my own way. And yeah, that's quite important because I am quite a strong wanting my own way person. But through times of difficulty, it's having good friends, going to God, and compromising other things other than God. I've never compromised my Christian faith, but sometimes I've changed a bit in other ways. So I couldn't say that I could have survived without God, quite frankly. And I'm not being spiritual. That's a reality.
Okay. Yeah.
How to do a left hook? Huh? Go.
That's a real serious issue, I think. The question that was raised there was, what do you do with the children who are being bullied? How do you handle that? Do you teach them how to give a left hook? What kinds of values do you impart? One of the popular beliefs, I think, that's in society is that if your children are being bullied, teach them to treat people the way that they've treated you. In other words, teach them how to fight, teach them how to do those things, and they'll survive. I want to say this really clearly. That does not work. All it does, it actually makes, in the end, it makes that person a bully themselves. That's the first thing. Retaliation is in no way either an honourable or a healthy thing for any person. You teach them retaliation at school like that, and they will still be doing it when they get in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. That's the reality. So it's important that you don't do that. There's actually some really clear things that the Bible models, and that's the role model of peacemaker. A person who's willing to bring peace and to find ways through it. And my girls have been through it at times where other boys are bullies, girls are catty, which is a different form of bullying often. And they've come home, what do I do with this? And my response has always been this one thing, because I believe it's a God-honouring and a helpful response to your children, is never, ever retaliate. Always seek to try and bring change for the other person. There are ways of doing that. I've always spent some time explaining to our girls how the reason why people bully is because they feel insecure. They want to assert their mark on the world. And they think bullying will get them favour. Now, a person who shows honour and respect, even to those who bully them, will always be the winner at the end of the day. So I would say to our girls, go back and try doing something really nice to them. Find a little thing they do well and compliment them for it. That goes right against the grain in our human nature, because by nature we're sinful. But try to change the environment and teach them how to change that environment rather than retaliation. You choose retaliation, that'll perpetuate the thing, and your children will live with that for the rest of their lives. I think, as much as I don't agree with this religious philosophy, Mahatma Gandhi is a person who proved his point. So did others. Martin Luther King is another one. Non-violence, peace. It's certainly a picture that's portrayed very clearly in the Bible. Now, I want to be careful and say this, though, in case people jump to conclusions. If I was walking down the street and somebody was bullying another person, which I have had happen to me on the numerous occasions, and they were beating up on somebody, I would first try to talk with the person reasonably. But if they were doing damage to the other person, I would try and make sure the police are called immediately. But I would also seek to stop the conflict, even if it costs me. Because sometimes peacemaking will cost you. And in terms of bullying things, one of the other aspects of it is that we need to teach our children how to teach others. Not to join in the fight, but to seek to be peacemakers, to seek to bring resolution. But more importantly, to give the bully a chance to not lose face and to come out the other end knowing that somebody there cares for me. A lot of bullies come either from families that are dysfunctional because of violence and that kind of thing, or because the child has been spoiled excessively. That's where a lot of bullies come out of. So I think the most important thing is to try and teach a child to respond in ways that are going to be healthy, not only for them, but for the other person, for the bully. There's a whole lot of stuff we could go on there, but I think I'll stop it. Is that helpful?
Can I say something?
Yeah, my wife's going to say something.
This morning we sang a song in children's church, Turn the Other Cheek. When, like someone hits you, just turn the other cheek. So there we are, that's what they've been learning in children's church.
That, of course, is a quote from the Bible. For anybody that may be aware of the fact, the Old Testament said if somebody hits you one side, you belt them back the other, sort of thing. Jesus, when he came along, he said, no, that was God allowed that to happen. That's not the ideal. This is the ideal. Somebody hits you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. If he takes your coat, offer him your shirt as well. Very powerful statement. Not so easy to do. Okay, another question.
Well, can I say something? All right, sit down. You gave us the seats. Something I used to say right from birth to my children before they went to bed was Mummy loves you, Daddy loves you, and Jesus loves you. That were always the last words they heard before they went to bed. And I think that probably had a great impact.
Well, when my children were little, I wasn't a Christian when they were very little, and but we did have some values, and one of the things that was really important was for Sam and I was to not disagree on the way we treated the children. Sam was quite calm and would say the word, and the children would follow most of the time. I was not so calm, but one of the things I did learn was that if we agreed on whatever happened, if I was telling the children off, he didn't interfere, and if he was telling them off, I didn't interfere, so that we were always unified. Whether I inwardly disagreed or he did, we did not produce that in front of the children.
Yeah, I actually wrote a list before I had any of my children on the values I wanted them to have once they were adults, and I found that list not that long ago, and I was surprised at how many of the values they have. I think for things like honesty and reliability, and I can't think of everything I wrote down, but I think a lot of it comes by example as well. if you want them to be honest, then you need to be very honest about things as well, especially in the small things as well, to teach them the same way. And I'm really blessed.
Yeah, there's the aspect that Pat brought up about the whole business of not disagreeing in front of the children. Whenever we did that, and we didn't do it very often, we learned after a wee bit not to do it. Whenever we did that, it created some dilemmas for our children that were quite high. Because what they would do when they were little, they'd come to Mum, they'd say, Mum, can I do this? Mum would say no. They'd come to Dad, and I'd say yes. Never thought at the beginning to ask if I'd already asked Mum. Then when I realised that this was happening, I'd say, what did Mummy say? Mummy said, come and ask you. And not always was that honest. So I had to be very careful I didn't get caught by that trap. So I think one of the best values that we can teach is patience. No, they've come and asked me. They want to know now, because that's the prerogative a child wants to know now. They haven't learnt that deal of patience. And so the most important thing you can say to your child at that point is, I'll have to talk with Mum first. And I'm not doing it right away. If you wait nice and patiently, I'll have a chat with Mum. Now, if they got uptight and they got angry or frustrated about it, my immediate response at that point was to say, look, I don't think it's appropriate I pursue this. Because you're getting out of control here. And that's not good. And so I'm not even going to consider doing this thing unless you're willing to have a bit more patience, unless you're willing to work through this thing with me. And that way it taught the children to model patience. This business of talking about an issue, Pat said sometimes she disagreed. Pauline and I would disagree, but the best thing to do is to keep it in privacy with each other and not to make it a fight with each other. Children will try to divide and conquer. They will. I'm not kidding. They don't mind if you suffer in the process until later. Then they feel bad. Make sure they don't have to feel bad by not allowing yourself to be visibly or openly seen to be in conflict. You need to go to your partner marriage if you're married, or the other person if you're not married. You need to do it even if there's been a separation, to keep good or healthy open dialogue. I know I respect one or two people whose marriages have collapsed, unfortunately, but have had the decency to still consider the importance of healthy communication for the sake of the children. So within the marriage, I'd go and talk to Pauline and I'd say, look, I don't agree with that. And she said, well, this is the reason why. The reason I said was because that child, whichever one it was, Adele or Johanna, Zala was a bit old before we got her. Sometimes I'd like to, not very often. But the child in our family, one of our girls, had actually done something that wasn't good earlier in the day. So therefore, to actually give them what they were asking for would have been to reward bad behaviour. And I always remember when the girls came home from school, both at different times, came home from Cannon Street School across here. Adele was the first one, and then Johanna a couple of years later, came home to our home and said, oh, Mummy and Daddy, I want to be naughty. Now, they were telling us they wanted to be naughty. Both of them did it. And I said, why is that? Because at school, if you're naughty, you get rewarded. But if you're good, you never get recognised. That is bad. And I'll tell you now, I addressed that at the school. It was never solved. Never has been solved. In fact, I heard a comment only a week and a half ago, I think it was, about a child who said exactly the same thing to their parent. That is not good modelling for children. You need to reward those that are doing well, and those that are not doing well, you cannot afford to reward them just because they do one little good thing. You must teach them that you can reward them to a measure. Acknowledge their good thing. But don't go overboard giving them lots, because they're going to learn that if I behave really badly and then I do one little good thing, I'm going to get bigger rewards than if I just be good all the time. So that's, part of the deal. Some of the values in your case. Any other questions? Yes. Do you discipline, you got 3 girls in the family, do you discipline them all the same, or do you discipline them differently because they've got different natures? Panel can go, I'm going to put a little screen up here for a second.
I think all children should be treated equally, regardless of who they are, whether they're male, female.
Yeah, because they all need to know that there'll be the same consequences to their actions, to their behaviours. Otherwise, it's seen that you're favouring one above the other, maybe.
We used to treat them the same too, but when they sort of got to a certain age, you sort of realised that their personalities were so opposite that what would affect one, like taking money off one, would really hurt, whereas it didn't really affect the other one. Money was just money. And it didn't affect them, but if you stopped them seeing their friends or talking on the telephone, then that would hurt, whereas it wouldn't affect the other one. So as they got older, it wasn't the fact that we said, because normally you're only, like it would be, say, one person that was in that conflict. So you'd say, okay, if you do this again, you will not be able to talk on the telephone. Now, if it was the other one I was in conflict with, I'd say, okay, I'm going to take money off you. So in the end, we found that we did have to make differences.
Yeah, that's what we did. No, it's a serious thing. We all would tend to try and discipline our children equally. But that disciplining equally doesn't mean to say use exactly the same discipline with each child, as Pauline pointed out. You try and treat them all equally. No favouritism. One of the most difficult things a parent can cope with, I think, is when you've got an older child and the younger one comes along, the younger one invariably says, you're treating the older one better than me. Now, the reason for the child feeling that is because the older one's older and therefore needs to be allowed to do things that the younger one isn't allowed to do yet. And to be fair, that person needs to wait till they get older. Now, the irony of the thing, doesn't matter how hard you try, that younger one will always do some things earlier than the older one did. Because as parents, you're learning. And that's the worst thing about being a parent, is that you're learning in the process. And especially in our modern world, where modelling has not been a good thing in terms of parenting. So, yes, treat them equally as much as you can, but because of the different types of personalities, you can't treat them the same. We would have Adele and Johanna's response to smacking.
Which we did very controlled by it. Adele would stand there, she's getting a tap on the backside. She'd look at me very defiantly as if to say, you can hit me as hard as you like and I'm not going to cry. Right? Johanna, she would be there. We'd send them to the drawer to get the wooden spoon. Nice big flat area. So it wasn't going to hurt. And it wasn't even hit on the side, it had to be on the plate. So it was more disciplined, it wasn't designed to inflict serious pain. We'd make them go to the drawer to get the spoon out. And for the populace in this world, especially in social welfare, they don't like going to smacking. That's because some parents lose control. I want to say this publicly. Those parents will still lose control, whether the law's there or not. It would just inhibit parents who try to keep integrity. And the Bible is certainly very clear on this issue that you spare the rod and you spoil the child. If you don't discipline appropriately, that's wrong. So in any case, what actually happens, they go to draw. Now They haven't learned anything out of that except that Dad can get extremely angry. So if they have to go and get it, they are in control of the environment, and you need to allow them that freedom to get it, be in control of it. So the day would go off, she'd get the freedom to bring it to me, give it to me, fairly quickly. She'd stand in, give the 5 minutes, whack. Hand placed as you could get. She was not going to cry. She was not going to let me have the privilege of seeing her cry. Or the pleasure of it that way. Johanna, it's quite different. She's older now, so she goes, you could get all through. She'd eventually get there. She'd pull the door open very, very slowly. I can't find it. So eventually she would get the wooden spoon she had. And if I could see it, it's funny, it was fine. If I got angry about it today, I was teaching her that I didn't have patience. If I took her, I didn't have patience, and it's really good. And I'll be honest with you, there's a couple of times I didn't have patience. Right? And she'd come back, go with the spoon. When she gave me the spoon, it would get louder because I think in her mind she had the perception of she cried louder, I should get less. I'm not sure how much it would get to the influence. She may go a little less sometimes. Most times I was trying to be fair, thinking I gave her 3 for this, she gets 3 for it. Maybe I don't know whether I was right or not, I'm not sure. I tried to be totally fair. That's all you can do. Does that help?
As you probably gathered, we used the wooden spoon when they were little, and then as they got older, the wooden spoon had less effect. So I mean, I can't remember what age we sort of changed, but we went to the, taking money off or no phone calls or friends around. Yeah, so we sort of had to change as the years went on.
I think Pauline is the only one who broke one, by the way. Funny thing, not so long ago, when we moved rooms and Evelyn came to live with Pauline's mother, my mother-in-law. We had to clear a room out so Johanna could move in. And we had this big toy box that I built for the kids with a lid on both sides so they could get toys on each side. It never worked, so they would float between the toys. She would have divided them on the side. We pulled this toy box out to discover hidden behind the toy box 9 wooden spoons. Any other questions?
Schooling issue. How do you deal with it when there's a book being read at school that you're not happy with? For example, witchcraft stuff, which is very common in schools at the moment. There's a lot of teachers seem to turn to it as reading material.
You don't do what I have had some parents. I've had to talk to some parents in the church and people who are outside the church. When I was on the school board of trustees, I was involved in the whole points in the little team used to deal with problem children and discipline. And the one thing you don't do is you don't go, you go to school and say, I'm going to have you to the teacher. Intimidation and threatening does not help your child. It teaches your child bad behaviour. these children have some childlike natures in their own lives to be able to cope with teaching. When I said that, some teachers got very upset. You calling me a child? No, you're not. But then some of their responses, I actually, until they get a bit older, I don't always help them. So if they get attacked, especially young kids like that, the most appropriate thing you can do is go and talk about it quietly. So I have a wee bit of a problem with this thing. I'd like my child withdrawn from the class when you are doing these things. It's your choice if you want to do them. But we're not happy for our children to be taught witchcraft. And if the teacher says no, then you say, well, I'm going to have to go to the Board of Trustees. Go to headmaster next, and then the Board of Trustees. That's the way to deal with it. The government put the Education Act in the shape and form it is so that you do have some ability to hold the school accountable. Use it wisely. Don't go any bombing because they will simply ban you from the school side. We had some parents that moved their children, I think, about 5 times in schools, and the school kept getting the blame. The school was not to blame. It was the response to the parents who were to blame. The school, sure, was not doing good things in their eyes, but they're a secular organisation and they're not anything else, and you need to respect them. So it's really, really important that you approach it carefully like that. Do it as a process. Your child is not going to be evilly influenced in one of two corporate areas. They'll be more easily influenced by you responding in an appropriate way to the issue and for them to see the results long term. Is that helpful? Any other questions?
We also mentioned to our children that we didn't want them, so they knew too, didn't we, that those things are wrong. Do you want to say that again? We also taught our children that these things are wrong. I mean, we see them on television, witchcraft and stuff like that, so we used to teach them that those things are wrong, so they knew beforehand that they were, that these things weren't right.
By the way, if you go to the school and say these things, be very careful that the school doesn't come back at you and say that you let your child watch this TV program. Because I've heard that said by teachers. It's just as bad as witchcraft. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, one back there.
If something has happened in your past, that your children who are 99.9% chance of finding out about, should you make the effort to tell them regardless of their age, or should you wait till they're a particular age before you tell them, or do you run the risk of not telling them wait till they find out from the outside?
Okay, the question is, you've got something in your class that you don't want your children particularly to find out the wrong way. When you tell them, how do you tell them? Is that right?
Yeah, and it should be an age.
Should there be, yeah, that's what when you tell them. Okay? Anybody want to start on? There's no ages.
Okay. I don't think there's a proper age limit or a right or wrong age limit. I think depending on what it is, you use your judgment. In my particular case, my children didn't know about the reasons I, as Gary told you in the beginning, ran away from England, because it didn't seem appropriate at the time. But as time went on and as I became healed of those things, then they heard and they knew about it. And one particular time I do remember and I think it was really important, when Helen was going to England, before she went to England for her OE, she did, I had quite a concern because I had been an abused child, teenager, whatever. And I was really concerned that I was sending Helen to a situation which I wasn't sure about, because I wasn't sure. It was a bad situation that I'd come out of 27 years prior, and Helen was going back there. And I remember talking with Gary, and we prayed a lot about whether we should tell Helen the whole reason of why I left England, so that she went back with this knowledge, or whether I didn't. And because I really felt God was working in my life, and that for Helen to go to England with a freedom of the people that she was going to be staying with, which was my family, I chose not to. And I'm really glad, because it wasn't a problem for Helen. And she went there with not with a, what would you call it, a preset idea about a person, and which could have put up masses of barriers and caused perhaps more problems, I don't know. But as time went on, she did hear, and so did the others. So I think it's a judgment call, rather than this age you must tell your children. I do think your children do need to know, and they do need to know from you. But it is a judgment call in lots of different areas, and depending on the situation. I would say that it's something that you seek counsel about if it's important, and if it's big, seek counsel, and then sit the situation with your children at the time, and then decide what to do.
I just want to say this. I wish my parents had told me something that happened in their past when I was young. Find out when I did when I was older. And it was quite a different bad situation. It wasn't what had happened to me in one sense. But it's something that I would have appreciated knowing, and I would have understood why I was in conflict with my father for years and years and years. I just had no understanding, and I think it would have been helpful if I had a talk with him when I was younger. So there's wisdom, and actually you seek counsel. I think if my parents had sought counsel, they would have been recommended. So they sat down and talked with me and said, "Hey, Gary, you weren't meant to come along. But we care for you still." But said that, it would have solved a whole lot of problems for me personally. So, I went through stuff I didn't know. Yeah, by the way, when you see, I still think I don't know. Okay, Christian Romero.
We've used a spoon because hands we like to think are for loving. And you might go to hug your child, and if you normally use it for smacking, the child might think you're going to smack them instead of hugging them. So the spoon, I think, is sort of it's out there. It's just it's just an implement, yeah, rather than part of you.
Some years ago, we were fortunate enough to pick up some material that talked about this whole issue. I think around 3 or 4 years ago, she was probably getting fairly biggish. And when our girls got fairly biggish, giving them a wooden spoon was no longer appropriate. We managed to get the message through when they were young enough. Do not withhold, the Proverbs says, do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish him with a rod, he will not die. If you're doing it properly, that is. Another one from Proverbs. The rod of preaching puts wisdom, but a child left to herself or himself disgraces their mother. It's an interesting thing. He who ignores discipline despises himself, but whoever heeds correction gains understanding. So that's a side to teach children about on that side. He who spares the rod hates his son, or daughter, I might add, because remember it's written in this, why did you bring sense? But he who loves him is careful to discipline him. Careful is the primary word there. Careful. If you really care, and you're full of care, you're not going to do inappropriate things. You need to be held accountable on that too. And then there's a passage you can give your children. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid.
Actually, one of ours was needed discipline, and we happened to be outside a hardware shop at that time, so I actually went into the shop and bought a wooden spoon and used it.
Pauline did get told off by another parent once. And if another person gets involved in your discipline, you simply need to say to them, I have responsibility for this child. I respect your opinion, but I don't agree with it. Thank you very much for offering that. Best way to do it. Okay. Teachers used to hit children so much because some of them couldn't deal with their own anger. But it wasn't always inappropriate. I disagree with the education system at present. I have to put my flag on the floor. I think wise discipline is what's needed. I think the education department, the government had to make this policy because unfortunately a lot of teachers are not wise about it. And so therefore they've had to make this decision they've made. And my response would be slightly different, I think a long-term response would be better. It's only a short-term thing. Because one of the things that concerns me greatly at the moment in schools is the amount of children that are getting abused by teachers verbally, and I actually think the teachers that abused me verbally did me personal damage. The ones that managed to get something on my backside, and one of them desperately tried to, didn't succeed. He swiped in a roll, he swiped twice, second time in a roll. Third time he put my head on a chair, one of those school chairs. He swiped again. I didn't personally roll, it was an instinctive self-defense. I rolled, but my neck went through between the back of the chair and the seat. And he got a fright because I almost broke my neck. I was a lot of pain. I think he had enough to go But he was trying to be quite appropriate. He's actually quite well disciplined, that teacher. But there are other teachers who just, I mean, the one who was a famous All Black, a hooker, who came a whole class, he drew blood with his back left-hand switch. And most of the boys' backsides, that's inappropriate behaviour. And education department, I can understand making a decision. But I think what they've done, they have not built a better system. They've just created greater burden and emotional abuse. And that needs to be addressed. But that's long term. In terms of what's the word of first question? Yeah. So I think they need to rebuild. They need to rethink. And not necessarily turn back the cane.
Actually, can I say something? This is, you know, we've had a few questions about discipline. Oh, she's asking again, is she? Okay. We've said discipline is important. That's why it's mentioned in the Bible about spoil the, what's it? spare the rod, spoil the child. And I mean, the whole thing is of discipline. We really want to teach our children to obey, and the consequences of disobeying is that they will be disciplined. And so it is important. I think it's very hard. I mean, and you've got to follow through what you say. And I mean, I never enjoyed smacking my children, but they had to learn that what you said they had to do, or they were going to suffer the consequences. So it was their choice. And I think it's important to point out, okay, if you don't do this, you're going to get the wooden spoon. So they know that they're going to get the wooden spoon, therefore it's their choice that they got the wooden spoon. And so it's good to point it out. But I think also that after you have smacked, so that, I mean, make sure that they understand why they're getting the wooden spoon, but then after you've given it, is to make sure that, okay, that's finished with, it's over with, from, it's okay to give them a cuddle afterwards and sort of say, okay, now you understand that's what happens when you don't do as you're told. Okay, so next time try and remember to do as you're told and you won't get the wooden spoon. That's probably a good way of doing it.
Explain things as you go, is what you're saying. This next question is here. It's okay. Last question is going to be it. Yes.
Our youth and our teenagers are doing things a lot better these days as far as relationships, intimate, sometimes adult relationships. How do we, as Christian parents, give them a sense of feeling like they are going to be able to make the right decision at the right time instead of being pushed into maybe peer pressure and so on? How do we know that our kids, we've equipped our kids well enough to know that when they're faced with a situation they feel really good about saying no?
Okay. How do we equip our children so that as they grow older they know how not to succumb to peer pressure and how to make good healthy decisions, basically? That's right.
How do we do that? I think you've got to have a good relationship with your children and they're confident that whatever situation they're in, they can talk to you about it. Doesn't matter what it is, you're not going to jump up and down if they come and ask a question. That they know that you're always there, that you'll always be there to back them up and support them, and that you'll endeavour to give them wisdom. And I think your example of being a good parent to them will help them as well, because that they will have confidence in you. But being there for them at all times, regardless of what they're going to say or whatever the situation is, being there for them, supporting them. And doing that I think is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, and to add to that, just helping them to work out before they end up in the situations what they're going to say, where they stand, and helping them to work out where they stand and to have the courage to take that stand. And as Pat said, to know that you're there no matter what. Yeah, and that you trust, that they know that you trust them to make wise decisions. Yeah.
I think the last thing I would say in terms of what Pat and Anna said is be involved in dialogue. Both of them have said it in a different way. Be involved in dialogue with them. As the children grow older, you need to make less rules. When they're young, they need lots of rules to know where the boundaries are. But as they get older, if you're teaching them well, if you're modelling well, these rules. Let me say this really clearly. The number of parents I've heard over the years, I do a lot of counselling, I still do some, but I've limited it now. The number of parents over 24 years I've been in pastoral counselling, pastoral ministry, and I was youth pastoring at one stage, so it was just about all youth-related stuff at one stage. The number of parents that have been upset about their children swearing and all the rest of them, who say, "Don't you do that damn thing! Swearing in this house!" And don't even think about the fact that they've just sworn. Might have been a low level thing, but it was there. You cannot do that. If you want your children to become something special, then it's got to be starting here. You've got to become something special. They won't become something you're not. That little joke about, I read out earlier, about, she's got my mum's nose in our family. It's Dad's toes. They're both lost, the ones that were born to us. Both got across over top of each foot with the same toe as mine. We'll have it. And you'll go with it. They've got features of Pauline, but the real truth is that they're only physical features. Who we are is what our children become. You cannot live a double standard life. There's some people who go to church, and some of you I appreciate may not be Christians here this morning, but some people go to church on Sunday, but they live like hell raisers, Monday to Saturday, and the children are hell kids by the time they finish. They've raised hell. The children are there and they're misbehaved, out of control. It's got to be consistent from Sunday through to the next Sunday. For every parent, we need to live consistent lives, which are going to very strongly be an example. The Bible says very clearly, don't exasperate the children by what you do. It says a number of things along that line. But I think really what it keeps saying over and over and over again is the model that you follow will be the result in the children. And I know no better model than the model that Jesus showed the children. The disciples said, children, get away from me. Don't run around like that. That was some of Jesus' best guys. And Jesus said, no, come, bring them here. Go on, shut up, you guys. You're just out of control. He sat one of the children with me, and he said these words. Soften up, that's the old translation. My mum says, let the little children come to me. For such as these have the kingdom of heaven. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. It's one of the translations. Because children are able to have faith, which is really high, what are they going to have faith in? They're going to have faith in their parents primarily. And their parents' lifestyle and attitudes, and character, all those things are bad modeling, that's what the children are going to end up like. If it's good modeling, that's what the children are going to end up like. And yes, you do get some really good families where there seems to be a bad child in the family. That's another issue. We will address it, but I just briefly say this. There are, in odd occasions, some situations where an inherited aspect in the family has jumped a generation and has landed on the child of the family. Now, the Bible talks about that, and so do people in the whole world of psychiatry and psychology. There are things that do jump in families that inherit something else. Somebody in a lovely family who's quite murderous and is angry at it all the time, but don't appear to have any reason for it. Now, sometimes the courts can be pinned to that family's inappropriate behaviour or anything in the situation. Sometimes it's unexplainable to nature. You've got to realise that there is a spiritual dynamic which is more than just the physical person you have here with the mind that's been created out of your having anything as a cover. There's a spirit in every person. And so therefore there's a spiritual dynamic that will travel through Jesus and generations. So that needs to be considered. We're going to cover some of these things in the ongoing series we're going to be doing for the next few weeks. I want to ask you to give a hand to those that have a great great time together. May God be with you. May He give you grace and mercy and peace. I'm just going to pray as a close today. God, we thank you that we are all children ourselves. Some of us here are parents, but some of us are yet to be one day. Some of us as parents hoping it's a long time away. Lord, whatever, we pray you will guide us. Help raise not only our own children, but also to encourage and support those that